Welcome back to another Rusty production. We've been mucking around with all sorts of things on the forge over the last week, and that includes just trying to shape some metal. So, the beginnings of what could be a punch, the beginnings of what could be, I guess, a knife, and punching some holes in steel. So I'm just playing with things. I'm trying to stretch metal out. I'm trying to put holes in it. I'm trying to shape it, just to make as many mistakes as I possibly can. And I'll show you more of those soon. But what I thought I'd do today is I'm actually looking for a way to secure the is a bundle I'm going to be using. Secure my anvil to that log or that stand. And one of the ways I thought, or I saw at least the other day on YouTube to do it, was to create two brackets to go through those holes. And then rather than what I've seen people do with bolts to bolt it right down to the wood, I've seen some people use heavy screws to actually screw down into the wood. And that's one where I can maybe not damage the pieces as much as I might, and be able to move it around if I have to. Because the idea with this one is that ideally I can, put it down on its side, I can just keep it up like that, I can do all sorts of different things. There it's pretty stable. But I was thinking, I've got this piece of flat stock here, which probably is around about 5 mils thick, but I was thinking I could stretch that out a little bit, hot cut it in half, then punch some holes just as a way of just playing with the idea of that, and shape it so it becomes I guess a handle shape, but to be a bracket that I can then attach by going through these holes here. So ideally it goes through and then forms down, and I can then screw it into the log. So I'm going to play around with that. I'll get the fire started, and we'll see how we go. So the fire's really starting to heat up now. I'm going to put this through the middle. I don't know if it's the right move, but I'm going to actually heat the center of it and actually cut it in half with a chisel. I don't actually have a, I've forgotten the name of it. I haven't got like a sharp point at this point to bang it onto, so I'm going to use a chisel to cut through it, hot cut through it. The question would be whether I should use the entire steel and actually start shaping beforehand, but I think to really get the curve that I'm after, and then the dips down for the screws, I'm really going to have to do it as two separate pieces. So I'll stick this in the middle of the fire and we'll go from there. One of the things that I've been taught about using the fire is that the center of the fire is where I want to actually get the metal. So underneath the fire there'll be some hot coals, above the fire there'll be some hot coals, but through the center is where the hottest part of the fire is, and that's where I want to put this metal. So I'm going to try and put it in flat and use my little handy tool that I made to strap some of those coals back on and see if I can get it right in the center. And yes, I should have gloves on before doing any of this stuff, but I've had them on and off, so go some more of this coke. Now, one of the things I've seen other people with forges do is obviously rake the coke back onto the fire. This is a really small forge, and I think maybe I could do that if I turn the forge that way and then cut maybe a piece out of the front. I could start raking stuff onto it, but I think I'll look at that down the track. For the moment, I can just hand deal with any additions to the coke onto the forge, and we'll just work in smaller areas. Come back when it started to heat up. So the metal's nearly there. I'm ready to go. Obviously I'll put this to the side, put my gloves back on. I'm using this chisel, which is clearly not the right thing to be using in this scenario, and I really need to make a tool for this, but for the moment I'm going to use it as is. It's 19 millimeters. I'm not sure what that works out to in inches, but it's about maybe an inch wide. I'll try this out and see how it goes. pretty sure it's hot enough. There's the end of the chisel. There's the hammer I'm going to be using. Now, chisel, hammer, whoops, I've run out of hands. So ideally, if I had long tongs, I could put them between my legs and actually use the chisel and the hammer then. I don't have long tongs, so what I'm going to try and do is actually lay it down on the flat side of this anvil and see if we can get to cut it without everything flying everywhere. But that's the idea. In practice, we'll find out how that works. Now that wasn't ideal. That scored the metal, but this chisel's getting damaged in the process. So, I mean, it is a cheap chisel. I'm not too worried about it, but this is not the purpose for this chisel. This is a wood making chisel. This is not a metal cutting chisel, I don't think. So I did do it again, and it did start biting in that second time. One of the things I did was get the wire brush and make sure I gave it a good brush before I actually started whacking. I think that there was some scale stopping me from cutting through properly. So what I've done is I've flipped the metal over, so I'm going to take it from the other side now. I've already scored that side. I will brush it with the wire brush first before I get going, and then we'll get cutting onto it. One of the bad things about using my phone as a recording device is that every now and then people call, and when they call, the recording stops. Because I've got my back to you, I couldn't even see what was going on. So I'll give that one another shot. I did get a few more cuts into it, but I've put it in for another heat so I can really get through it. Hot. See that? That's fire. There we go. Works. So I'll heat those pieces up separately. I'll then start bending them into place, and we'll see if we can punch a few holes through. So that piece is getting hot. While it is, just quickly talk about the other piece. Basically what we want to do is have it go over like a handle and then kick back so we can screw it in. So what's really useful for that is this horn that I've created on the anvil has almost exactly the sort of convex and then converse shape, or concave shape that we need to actually go over and then back under again. So I'm just going to try banging it on the end of that, create the sort of roundabout shape, and then reduce the height of it as I need to go. So let me get this one out of the heat and we'll see if we can knock it into shape. That's actually pretty good. That's roundabouts what we're after. So we put the other side in, heat that up, try and match it on the other side, and then we'll try it out on the anvil, make sure it's all going to fit. Seems to be going well. That looks about right. I've got an extra bit of length on this side because it's too long for the space, so that's all on purpose. Just going to try it inside here without trying to burn too much and see if it fits. Right, so clearly now that it's all bent around, that's not going to fit. I'm going to have to actually thin the edges through the center there, so that the center area is thinner, so that I'll be able to twist and bend it around and make sure it fits in there properly. So we'll heat up the center and finish it off. So that's just about the height I want. I'll probably drill through these because it's just going to be, I know it's going to be easier. The idea of actually punching it is more for practice. So look, based on this blog, I guess I should be punching it. So I'll do that. But what I might do is just for this video, let's do one, and then I'll go and do the other one separately, and I'll come back and you can see how it all works out at the end. So one of the other things I'm going to be doing is making a punch. Now I've been mucking around with this. You can see that's, I guess, starting to become a square punch, but then I've got to grind it down on the sander, and give it that flat edge on top. For this, I actually want a round hole. I haven't gone to the trouble of making a round punch, and obviously I need to harden, temper it. Which is something in itself, so I'm going to have to practice doing that, but ideally I'll do that with this. I'll turn this from a square to actually a round punch. But for today, what I'm going to use is this little punch here. It doesn't seem like it should work, but it has already worked in the past, so it's quite small, but at least give me something to start that position so that when I finish off this punch, maybe tomorrow or the next day, I can finish off the job by putting it through an existing hole, so it's going to be a lot easier. So what I'm going to do is just use that now. This thing looks hot enough. I'm going to basically, I'll flip the anvil over so that it's got the holes sticking through, because ideally that's what I want to punch through. But before I do that, I'll hit it on basically the YouTube videos I've been watching, so to hit and score it by putting it on the flat edge so you're not sort of warping the metal, and then when it's just about ready to punch through, then go through straight with the punch. So I'll give that a go, and hopefully it's going to work. So we need our tongs. The other thing is, obviously I've got to make some tongs soon. I've got this stock here, which I'm going to look to use to make some small tongs. Try that over the weekend. You can see these ones here are a bit bitey, which means that in the soft metal they just put holes in it, or not holes, sorry, lines in it, and so I really do need some proper tongs soon. I imagine the first lot of tongs I make will not be proper tongs, it'll be like something I'm using. So look, this is all fun and games, I'm a novice smith, so it's all about trying things. So I think trying a first set of tongs is something I'm really looking forward to doing. And something I'm going to have to do soon, because while it probably doesn't matter at the moment that I'm getting all these lines in the things that I'm doing, hopefully in a short period of time I'll actually try and finish something. It'll be a lot easier to finish it up without trying to get a lot of scores out of the metal. Let's see if we can punch a hole in this thing. It's not very long, so I'm trying not to burn myself. Alright. Let me come back to that in a sec. Hang on, we've got a low power thing going on. Alright, so now I've done this before already through a thinner piece of metal and it worked great. In this scenario, here's where you can learn from my mistakes. This little punch, look at that. has basically melted. And I only had 2 hits on that. I'll see if I can straighten that back up for other use later, but clearly not the punch I need. So I may actually end up drilling that one. We'll work that out in a moment. Let me just turn off the camera and see if we can salvage this. I love the confidence I went into actually punching that metal with. So clearly that's seen better days. I don't know if you can focus on it, but basically I've knocked it back into some sort of shape, but I'm gonna have to grind that back into a point to use for anything else. And really, I think it's either for thin metal, potentially for wood. So we might have to make my own punches from here on out and actually harden them before use. So if I can't punch these in the next short term, I'll actually just drill them for the moment and just bang the brackets into space and then go from there. Okay, so we've got our 2 brackets. You can see that's the punch end. Clearly I'm not through. And I've made it pretty close to the same. You can see this one, which is the not hot one. The other one is still pretty hot. They're probably going to need just a little bit of a clean up. Just you see through there, that's a little bit higher there. And what I'll do is I'll just grind these edges, or cut these ends off. We'll drill through each of the holes, and I'll come back tomorrow and we'll put it into the makeshift anvil. We'll put it through these holes here, and let's see if I can grab this so you can see what it's doing. It's still a bit warm. The idea is that it goes through there and it just fits through. And what I'll do is I'll drill that through with a decent wooden screw there, and on the other side here as well, where the other one goes through. And you can see in the back that they'll come through and that'll screw in there as well. So the only thing is I might have to just lower it down a bit just so that it really does bite onto the edge of the anvil and then really hold it in place. So one of the other things I need to do, which you may be able to tell from this angle, is that there's a slight slope to this log. So I'm just going to get the chainsaw out and just clean the edge of this up a little bit and try and make it as level as possible before I start screwing this onto it. But all in all, I think that'll hold it in place and it'll stop it jumping around. You can see it go like this and that. And then, but I'll finish this up tomorrow, and you'll see how it looks when I'm screwing it in place. Now I've actually got just a little bit of oil in this ashtray, and I'm sliding it around so I can put a bit of oil on the end. It's a nice way of keeping the heat down. So you can see there, clearly not in exactly the right spot, but not too bad. And I'll get some quite long wooden screws to actually hold that on, and I'll cut the end off this piece here. But all in all, that's about what we're after, and that should be able to hold our makeshift anvil to our stand. Hello, it's the next day. We're going to do a little bit of work today just to clean this piece of wood up, and I'm just going to use an electric chainsaw to do that, just to take off just a little bit of this to try and get it sort of semi-level. I've got this tiny little super cheap level just to get an idea of where it's all sitting. It doesn't have to be 100%, but it needs to be probably as close as it can be. And then we're going to get our brackets that we made up yesterday, and we're going to screw those through the anvil holes and onto the wood. So let's get started. Alright, so we've got a little electric chainsaw. We're outside now, just because I didn't want to do it in that really enclosed space. We know that we need to take off some here, so I'm just going to literally lay it flat
and cut that, try and be as safe as I possibly can be. Eye protection on because little chips of wood will go everywhere. And I've also put a couple of inches of wood, I don't know if you can see that, just underneath the log. There you go, you can see that. Just because it needs a couple of inches of height, and so I'm using that inside. So I'm just doing the same thing I'm doing inside, outside, so I can make sure I get it level. So let's cut away. There is sawdust everywhere. I do find this actually is a really quick way of getting things down though, rather than having to sand or grind them back. We'll get the level and we'll see where we're at. Alright, so it's going to come down a little bit in this spot here, and then it's going to be pretty even. I think we're about halfway there. You can see I'm actually not taking a lot of wood off. The bubble's not right up the other end, it's actually pretty close to where it needs to be. Actually, that middle bit's like pretty spot on. It's just when I get to there. Actually, it's just through that area there. A couple of bumps. So I'll just finalise that. Being careful not to take too much material off. Yeah, see, if I start taking too much material off, it's going to go the other way. That middle section looks really good. Okay, just going to quickly get the anvil and put that one on top, and then actually make sure that that is level, and that it's level in as many spots as I can put it. Then we should be done. I'm always surprised by how heavy this little thing is. Okay. Oh, it's pretty close. So it's slightly down. Same. So there's a spot there. Okay, so just a spot there. Actually, that's not a spot there. That's the same spot it's always been. Yeah, so going this way, it's absolutely fine. Just when I go across that way, so it is really still that spot. Alright. That is spot on. Better that way. That's actually not too bad because that's actually the corner that I'll be looking into. So if I can keep this mark here facing out from the wall, I think we're done. So just got to finalise the brackets, and then I'll screw them on, and job complete. Okay, so you can see I've got my brackets in. Quick little tip that I should have probably already known, rather than trying to push them in this way, actually flip it upside down and put them in that way and then spin them around like this. So that actually made it a lot easier for them to flip in, rather than trying to compete with the wood itself. So we'll screw these directly in. Got my handy little electric battery operated screwdriver. Alright, hopefully these will bite well enough. I might actually go and get the electric screwdriver. This battery operated one really doesn't have a lot of torque on it. And I can change it up, but it really doesn't make much of a difference. You'll see, like, yeah, it was already on the highest. So I'll get the other one and we'll go again. Okay, we've got the power drill. Let's go from there. Oh, bloody hell. Nearly there. Just gotta put a bit of pressure. Yep, that's in. Let's try the second one. I actually, before I switched over the bit in the front of this, I drilled a couple of quick pilot holes in here just to make life easier for myself. There's another mistake for you. It's really starting to grind this away. I'm actually going to grind the top off that so that I can bite it in a little bit better. We'll have to get a new bit though soon. It's possible that I could call this show Rusty Pearson Destroys Tools, because I seem to be doing more of that than anything else. It's a little bit frustrating actually. The bit on the end here really got knocked around just trying to drill the screws into the wood. Obviously it's hard wood. So what I'm going to do, I've had to file down and take a couple of mils off it so I can even just get into the screw head now, and that does get in there, but I'm really not getting any love trying to force my way in. So I'm going to drill some pilot holes with the drill bit that I've got that I made the holes with in the first place. We won't go all the way down, we'll just go a decent way down, and then I'll screw the screws in following that pilot line, and then ideally bite into the wood at the very end. So let's do that. Yeah, that actually, I could feel even that the drill bit then just hit a really hard spot. So that's what I'm hitting. And try it on the other side here as well. So this is what we're looking at. I think they're in there quite well. It's like not really moving at all. And I mean, I can rock the thing, but it's actually rocking the wood more than anything else. So I'm, pretty happy with that. Can use this for bending if we need to. Same with this hole here. And the only thing is, if we want to actually punch through something, we might look at something else for that. But I've also got this other piece of steel over here. Just a quick one too. There's a magnet that I'm using. The reason I've actually got it on here is it does take a slight bit of the ting off the sound of the anvil. So putting it on this base and putting these brackets in is actually taking some of that away as well. But putting that in there does make a difference in taking that ting off. And what I find is I get all these metal filings all over it. That's the only problem, and they are a real pain. Watching a whole bunch of videos, they're literally just saying to use a wire brush to get that off rather than using your fingers so you don't get stuff all over yourself. So clearly that's not going to work. I'm just putting it there, but I'll hold it in two hands because I'm holding one hand on the camera, and that does, I guess, get it off a bit. But I was looking for a sort of a magic answer to get those metal filings off, like, I don't know, some way to turn the magnet off and on. But if anyone's got any ideas on that, please let me know in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for watching this episode, and all the episodes that I'm doing on this channel are really about making mistakes. I want to show you how I'm going about trying to actually use the tools that I've got with very little instruction, and then using YouTube as a way to learn further and obviously learn through doing. So I love the idea of learning through doing, and that's what this is all about. So if you're enjoying that, please subscribe. I've got a whole lot more videos coming up. We're going to try and make some tongs soon. We will eventually get to making a knife and all the things that come with heating and hardening metal. So Rusty Pearson signing off. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch